The Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, fifth week event means we get amalgamated once again. Jefferson Pierce makes the scene, but is it in a shared universe? The Doctor is in. It's not a space jam. 455 AD seems just like yesterday, and a modern-day Frankenstein mean stride. Plus, we salute a fallen Bond with a kick-butt poll of the week. We're shaken but not stirred with a laser in my belt buckle and Ashley's razor-sharp hat. Or is that wit? The Major Spoilers podcast is on the air.
Welcome to issue 730 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you, everyone, for downloading and sharing this episode with a friend. We certainly appreciate that. And why don't we just jump right into the news this week? Let's see. We have three items. Zack Snyder steps away from the Justice League movie. The Runaways is returning. And Black Lightning isn't part of the Arrowverse. Let's spin that Wheel of Destiny. Let's see where we land and what we will be talking about this week. Lands on number 3, Black Lightning isn't part of the Arrowverse. Now, this past week, the CW and a bunch of other networks had their upfronts, and we got our first look at Black Lightning in the first trailer for that series that will debut not until 2018. It's a mid-season replacement. Black Lightning, they're coming up in January alongside iZombie and the rest of those mid-season shows that the CW puts out. I thought the trailer looked pretty good. I don't know what you guys thought.
I thought Black Lightning looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it looked amazing. I think he's going to be awesome. And I have a theory that he's going to be on Supergirl's Earth.
Oh, now that's a good one. Now, because that was the one thing that came out of the announcement was that Black Lightning is not part of the Arrowverse. And the main reason was given by the producers is, well, if we say that he's part of the Arrowverse, then everyone's going to be expecting a giant 5-part crossover between Flash and Arrow and Supergirl and Legends of Tomorrow.
You can't have a metahuman have been running around before, like Arrow's the progenitor, to steal Jason's term for him.
Right. and they said it was just going to be a logistics nightmare because Black Lightning is filmed in Atlanta while everything else is filmed in Vancouver. I say that is a cop-out answer, to be honest. I think that as big as this great wide world is, not everything has to take place on the West Coast, because it's clear now that Central City is not in Kansas, but rather California somewhere.
That it was like 300 miles away from Star City, even though it's supposed to be Kansas. Like the geography of the DC TV universe is a little jacked up.
Well, they've even said in Flash. I mean, Ferris Air the airfield is just south of there too, and so it's clear that everything that happens in the Arrowverse is the West Coast.
That miles are smaller in the Arrowverse, and it's not the same unit of measurement.
The problem is we're assuming they've never said Kansas. We assume Kansas because of Central City in the comics, but they've never said Kansas, and it's clearly something coastal. I mean, Central City has a huge waterfront with the ocean. That ain't Kansas. But the thing that bothers me about it is the expectation that we have to explain where Black Lightning fits before we've even seen more than 2 minutes of the show. Like, as fans, we can't be satisfied with not knowing where this fits, where this goes, where's Arrow, where's Superman. And I don't care. I really don't. I liked the preview based on what we saw, and I feel like it's of a piece with Arrow. The parts of Arrow that I've enjoyed, the parts of Arrow that have worked for me. But it's also something that feels like it could be entirely different and maybe not necessarily aimed at, but dealing with a slightly older audience. I mean, we've got a character here who is a grown-up adult with a job and kids, which is something we have not seen anywhere else in the Flash or the Arrow or the Supergirl, really.
I super want his eldest daughter to go have an internship and for Kara to be her boss and for them to be like best super friends. I want it so bad.
Well, I think it does kind of matter, because if you are trying to do something that says, hey, we're a cohesive universe, at least on television between our shows, you can say that it's set in the same universe, except that, the United States is pretty big. Black Lightning's dealing with stuff on the East Coast. The rest of you heroes can take care of the stuff that's happening on the West Coast. And just because they are in the same universe doesn't mean you have to have a 10-part crossover featuring every single network show.
Pretty sure it does, Steven.
No, I don't think it. I don't think it has to. I don't think it has to. It would be cool, but you don't have to do it.
No, but that's what everyone is saying. That's what everyone's tweeting at you right now. Of course, they have to cross over. Why would they cross over?
But more importantly, just because it's another superhero genre show on the same network by the same creators doesn't mean it has to be the same quote unquote universe. I mean, that's the trap of this shared universe madness, where, oh my God, we're not just getting a Mummy movie, you guys, we're getting a Universal Monsters shared universe. Okay, give me a good Mummy movie to build from and we'll talk. So I'm fine with Black Lightning not necessarily being tied in. And, we said that about Supergirl in season 1, too. It's totally not tied in, you guys. It's on a completely different network. And now 2 years later, here we are after a giant 4-part crossover schmagegi. So,
well, and technically, as Ashley said, Supergirl is on a different Earth, so this could reside in that same universe, Ashley,
or another Earth,
sure.
Or that whatever.
I mean, we have to have more.
Sorry,
I don't want to spoil anything, but we have to have more characters from other Earths to populate our TV shows.
Or just make a show.
Catch.
make a show. Have a show. Give me a show, and then we'll figure out where it goes later. I mean, I don't know.
Rodrigo, do you have any thoughts?
Yes. My thought is this is fine. You guys know my feelings on continuity and crossovers. Like, they're not, most of the time I feel they actually detract from the show unless they're very carefully planned out. It's a good idea to not have it crossover because, as I believe Ashley pointed out, the show banks on a past that is incompatible, right, with the other shows. Also, it might be banking on a world that is incompatible with other shows, which we sometimes see as a problem in comics, right? You guys remember those any number of comics where Black Lightning basically gets on Superman's face and being like, how come you do all that stuff all over the place and not in Suicide Slum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that makes Superman look super bad and racist, which is reasonable in a Black Lightning comic, but kind of sucks in a Superman comic. So this way, they have their cake and eat it too, right? They can be like, yeah, things are bad.
But doesn't it just almost do the exact same thing by saying, hey, all of our white heroes are going to be over here in this universe, and we'll let the black hero have his own universe?
I mean, it's definitely a lot better than all of our white heroes are in this universe, and this universe gets one half black hero, as in he's part of two of them become one hero, and then the other one's a sidekick. So at least this is one guy in his own universe, in his own show, who doesn't have to be like, what can I do to not cross or to not like trip over Arrow or The Flash or anybody else?
Yeah. Having him in his own show is the plus and the minus here. If we look at it as, holy crap, we're going to have a lead who's a person of color who's the hero, that's great. But if we look at it from the perspective of a shared universe, yeah, there are definitely, as Steven said, there are implications there. But honestly, I cannot stress this enough. We get mad when the creators say, well, this has to go here because XYZ, or we're going to build this up into a 9-part Mordecai movie series. I feel like maybe as viewers, it's okay to give them that leeway, to let them build whatever they want to build here and have this universe and have it work or not work without having to say, and Green Arrow is busy this week because. I mean, we've seen this in comics for years, that question of Spider-Man's having money trouble. Why doesn't he just ask Iron Man for help? Captain America is outgunned by Blockbuster. Why isn't he calling in Thor to take this guy down? And
that's the problem with the movie universe as well. Like, you're not going to tell me that the events of Iron Man 3 happens and Tony's the only one who shows up.
Right. You have to be able to pull away from that and say, in a universe where Superman exists, there still has to be something that belongs entirely to the Thorn. They're in the same city, they're right down the street from each other, but her adventures can be separate and distinct without you having to say, and Superman was busy with Lex Luthor that day. And I think that giving Black Lightning that place of his own to be in, first of all, gives the character a little bit of the respect that I feel he's due after 45 years. And I feel like maybe they can establish the show before we have to go to the question of can there will be a crossover.
Yeah,
I think
so here's my prediction, and I've shared this already, is that they want to put this in for a half season to see how well it does. Mm-hmm. And if it does well, which I think it will, I think it really will, then they will say, oh, well, this is part of the expanded universe or part of the multiverse. And yes, we can have crossovers when it's appropriate. So it totally doesn't surprise me that is a route that they will go down.
Turns out he's on Earth 3 and Jay Garrick is busy.
Well, it could be that. I mean, I would definitely put Black Lightning in one of those great legacy characters.
So it would be fine by me if he's in his own universe, doesn't cross over, or if he's in his own universe and they have some kind of cosmic crossover, that's fine. As long as they don't make this like the Milestone universe, then that would start crossing over for me.
Why is that?
Well, if it's like, oh yeah, it's like this is the series for all the black superheroes,
right,
then that would be an issue, right?
Yeah,
it's like if they do Black Lightning and then they spin that off into, I don't know,
Icon.
Well, no, what I'm saying,
Rocket.
Yeah, sure. Well, but what I'm saying is like if those guys, or rather, if they take Black Lightning, and then in Black Lightning they introduce, I don't know, the Jaime Reyes. Has Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle been introduced in the DC universe?
He sure was awful on Smallville.
Yeah,
he was,
and he hasn't been in CW universe though.
So if they introduce Blue Beetle in the Black Lightning stuff, then that's fine. It's like I would just be leery if they're just like, okay, well, this is going to be the kickoff of the black superhero stuff. And
right.
It's like, oh, like maybe not. Maybe let's not do that.
Well, yeah. I also wonder too, and this is something that seems a little weird, is right now all of the networks seem pretty hot and bothered on having their own superhero show. So we've got Legion over at FX. We've got all the stuff at CW. CBS was interested in Supergirl until it wasn't. And the interesting thing was Black Lightning, if I'm not mistaken, was supposed to be at Fox, wasn't it, Ashley? Wasn't originally supposed to be at Fox, and then they passed, and so CW, because it's friends with Berlanti, was like, okay, yeah, we'll pick it up.
It was piloted for Fox. I did hear that. It was supposedly piloted for Fox Network, I want to say. But Fox did not pick it up, and then suddenly we heard, oh, well, CW is going to give it a half season.
We're good with our whitest of all white superhero shows, Gotham.
Yes.
That's not a superhero show. That is a superhero trappings.
I don't watch it, so maybe you're
Neither
right.
do I. I haven't seen it.
There's no superhero in that show. That show is a crime procedural with people wearing hats that say Catwoman and Joker.
I'm not even sure it's a crime procedural. I think it's.
Yes.
I think it's
it doesn't have to be a good one to fit into the.
It's a CSI. It's an NCIS. It's all of that, and then it's got a little bit of the dunk kind of going on with it. And Bruce Wayne, is like going to be, hey, I'm young Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne or Commissioner Gordon slaps Bruce Wayne upside the head, and then they go on a ship.
Exactly. And all of my villains are going to be 65 by the time I'm old enough to actually be Batman.
Yep.
Thursday nights on Fox.
Listeners, you can head over to Majorspoilers.com and catch news stories and a whole lot more. And if you're a Patreon member at patreon.com/Majorspoilers, you can get our discussion about a potential Runaways series, or is it a Nico's series? It's all over there at patreon.com/Majorspoilers. When you sign up, you're not only supporting this show and everything that we do at Major Spoilers, but you're also getting bonus material in return. Could be some bonus commentary from shows like this. Could be entire episodes like Flashback, which we're getting ready to have a big, long discussion later this week about the Flash season finale. Oh, will we be back for season 4? We'll have to find out. Head over to patreon.com/Majorspoilers. Let us now jump into some reviews. Boom Studios sent me this. It's very rare that they send a physical copy of a book, but this week they sent me a copy of Victor LaVale's Destroyer #1. This is a 6-issue miniseries written by Victor LaVale with art by Dietrich Smith. And this is a weird freaking book. So this seems to play on, or I do believe it does play on, the Frankenstein monster. When we last saw him, he was adrift on, an iceberg or something. And so this book takes place in Antarctica, present day, and we see this giant Frankenstein monster, all looking scary and torn up and everything. And he sees a whaling vessel come in, and he jumps in the ocean to find out what these whales are doing. And he sees them getting harpooned, and he crawls up upon the Japanese trawler and murderizes everyone there. And then, at the same time, there is a boat of eco people that are there protesting, and Frankenstein jumps over to their boat, and he's about to kill everybody, but then a girl says, wait a minute, let me just tell you, we're the good guys. Let me just tell you what's been going on these last 400 years since you've been away. And she catches him up, and then we smash cut to the eco ship pulling into dock, and everyone going, hey, isn't that ship supposed to slow down? And then it crashes and burns, and everyone's dead, except for this 10-foot-tall Frankenstein's monster. It's weird. That's all I can say. It's disturbing. I don't know. I couldn't get into it like I think everyone wants us to get into a modern, updated tale of what happens if Frankenstein monster lived for 400 years and still has a mad hatred for mankind and everything that mankind is doing. The art is interesting, but to me, it just couldn't hold my attention as much as I wanted it to. It may be solid for horror fans. I think this definitely falls into the horror genre for people that are wanting to read comic books. But 3 out of 5 slices of meatloaf for me, just a better than average, but not something that is, oh my gosh, I have to go grab this book this week. But if you're a fan of the Frankenstein legacy and you want to see what happens to the Frankenstein family, you might want to go check it out. It's out this week from Boom Studios. Matthew, what do you have for us this week?
So the Frankenstein shared universe. I have a one-shot, The Wicked and the Divine, 455 AD. Written by Kieran Gillen, art by, that's an interesting word that I'm not going to be able to pronounce correctly, and I'll probably sound like a jerk. Araujo. I'm going to go with Araujo. And this is set in the same universe as The Wicked and the Divine. If you have read that book, or I suppose if you haven't, I'll explain it for you. The Wicked and the Divine basically deals with the fact that every 90 years, 12 young people are reincarnated as, air quote, gods. And then for 2 years, they are immortal and famous and awesome and wonderful. And at the end of 2 years, they all die. And this has been happening over and over and over. It's this eternal cycle. And if you read it right, you can kind of read it as this is a presage of where all of the myths come from. And it keeps happening, and it keeps happening now, and now it's happening again. So this story takes place, as the title would have you believe, in the year 455 AD. So if you know anything about your history, and I totally don't, so that's fine, 455 AD was the year of one of the major sackings of Rome. I want to say by the Vandals, or the Scandals, or the Visigoths. I don't know. But nonetheless, thank you. When you read 455 AD, this is really an example of how to take the themes of your story and put them in a completely different setting and really give kind of a depth and a perspective to the story that they have been telling for 25 odd issues in Wicked and the Divine. And that's really hard to do. And it's really amazing that this works, because there is literally one character in here that we have any familiarity with. But everyone in it, being this archetypical God type person, has some sort of resonance to the story that we've already read. This is a horrible, horrible, horribly bloody, violent, weird, off-putting story. And yet I could not put it down. Honestly, I don't even want to describe it, because to describe it would be to give you a little bit more than you need from this type of review. Suffice to say that it's really well done. And in reading it, I feel like you will get a greater appreciation for what it is that they are trying to do, what it is that Wicked and Divine is actually about on that kind of highfalutin metaphorical level. And again, that's really hard to do in 36 pages of a comic book. I am told that it's Andre Araujo. So I apologize if you are listening. Thank you. We love you. You're awesome. Really well drawn issue. Really interesting take on everything that we've seen before. And again, just a horrifying ending that I'm not going to spoiler for you. 4 slices of meatloaf for the Wicked and the Divine 455 AD. I highly recommend it, but then I highly recommend all the Wick Div books. We call it Wick Div because, we're fans of it. The Wick Div.
I'm sure that's what they call it. Rodrigo, what do you got for us? Is this a comic book or is this something that National Geographic put out as a game or something?
This is both.
It is?
Yes. So I'm reviewing Animal Jam. Number 1, or is it just Animal Jam?
I think it's just Animal Jam. That's all I could
just
find.
Animal Jam. So Animal Jam is a website that kids can go to and learn about the natural world and animals and things like that through these cute characters. I didn't spend a lot of time. I went to the website to see what it was about. I spent some time looking around, but I didn't enter into anything because I didn't want to have to pay money. And so I can't really talk about the website itself too much. But I can talk about the Dynamite comic that is coming out. And it is about cute animals going on adventures. This comic has 2 adventures in it. Very short, very quick. It's for young readers. One of them is kind of an adventure involving 3 of the main characters and them stopping some bad guys called phantoms. And then the other adventure is an origin story for one of them because these magical animals have kind of like superpowers or something.
Oh, okay.
I didn't quite get exactly what sort of vibe they were going for. They're not quite superheroes. They're more like kind of do good adventurers. Like, I don't know, like Teddy Ruxpin and his crew. I don't know.
Like the Popples.
Yeah, like the Popples. Just to fully date ourselves, we'll just make a Teddy Ruxpin and Popples reference.
Right. Wait, we forgot about the shirt tails.
Yep, that is like, yeah, like the Snorks. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's cute. It's a cute comic for kids. If you get the comic, it comes with, I believe, a code that's going to give you some gems or coins or something in the game, and also some stickers. So you got that going for you if you're already into Animal Jam. I'm going to give it 3 slices of meatloaf. Obviously not specifically my thing, but it was cute. It's well drawn. Nothing wrong with it. Animal Jam.
Very cool. Ashley,
yes,
I have not had a chance to watch this past week's Doctor Who, just for various reasons.
Don't read the synopsis in the show notes.
Oh, no, I've already read it, so don't worry about it.
Stuff.
Yeah. So apparently Missy is in it. But do we get to find out what's in the vault this week?
In the very first scene. If you're pro-master, it's probably a great idea. If you're anti-master in every possible incarnation like myself, it's a less great idea. However, I think some of the strongest Capaldi episodes that we've had a chance to experience in what will be his all too brief tenure as the 12th Doctor have been the 2-part episodes. And Doctor Who Series 10 of the new incarnation, episode 6, is Extremis. That's what it's called. It's going to be a 2-part episode because it's going to pay off next week, which is very exciting, meaning that it's amazing. One of my favorite things about this episode is that you get to see Bill and Nardole hanging out, because if you watch last week's episode, 2 episodes ago, something happens to the Doctor, and so now he's blind. And he's convinced Bill that he's not blind, but he is still super blind. And his sonic sunglasses that aren't sonic sunglasses only do a little bit of the work when it comes to being able to read. So together, they all go to the Vatican, the most creepiest, possessed by a cult place on Earth. And they are trying to uncover the Veritas papers, which make people want to kill themselves, and figure out what the message is and how it inextricably ties back to the really cool scene with the guy with the really good voice and the really good costume that began this episode, that ties directly into who and or what Scottish time lady is in a box. And because the Doctor can't be as utilitarian as he usually is, Bill and Nardole have more responsibility than is normally thrust upon them. And Nardole takes his duty of care very seriously. The Doctor tells him to protect Bill, to keep Bill behind him, so he makes sure to keep Bill behind him. He very much acts like a bodyguard, which seems out of character a little bit for this kind of silly character that we've seen bumbling around, particularly in his first couple adventures. But he really proves himself capable and an equal of the Doctor, which is slightly because of something that's revealed about River's last order to him. But I think it did a great job at flushing him out and making this character a real person and not just funny side companion, jokey guy. And then, like, Pearl Mackey's just so wonderful. And I love her. And if she's only going to be here for one season, I'm going to be sad. But they're really wonderful together. And because when you have a 2-part adventure, sometimes there's moments where you have to stretch the narrative because you're trying to make a 10-act structure out of a 5-act story. Sometimes it feels weak, but when you have really great performers with great chemistry and you can build in moments of character development, that's where it feels really special. And if we're not going to have that much longer with these characters, I appreciate it even more. I like a Doctor Who episode that ties into human history without having to go to medieval England. And Extremis definitely does that. Whether you are pro-Catholic or anti-Catholic, I think you will find a lot of cool things to enjoy here. And it's just, this season of Doctor Who for me has been really spectacular. And it feels like now we're ramping up to the big fight that always comes at the end of the season. So 5 out of 5 slices of meatloaf, Doctor Who, 10-6 Extremis. Watch it and then tweet at me about how great this season's companions are.
Very cool. I will be watching that hopefully tomorrow. No, tomorrow I'll be watching The Flash. I don't know if I'll have time to watch The Doctor yet, but I will get to it. Because it's actually been fairly decent this season.
It's a good season.
I think that there have been some episodes that were really, really good and some that I were just like, okay. But yeah, it's overall, I would say it's a very decent season.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Rodrigo, Matthew, and listeners. Head over to majorspoilers.com for more reviews and also the Major Spoilers Poll of the Week.
Week. Dun, 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 dun.
So, some sad news this week. The passing of Sir Roger Moore. Cancer took his life earlier this week, depending on when you're listening. Hello, future people. And he has
he was 89.
I know, 89. Still looking pretty good for 89. Yeah. But he's had an acting career, I want to say almost as long as William Shatner's, maybe a little bit longer. William Shatner's interesting because there has never been a decade since the 50s that he has not been in a television series or he's not been in the public eye in some way, shape, or form. And Roger Moore has kind of been the same way. I mean, he was in The Sane, he was in Maverick, he played Sherlock Holmes in TV movies, and of course he had a 12-year run as James Bond. And some say that he is the best Bond. But this week, I thought we could look at what is the best Roger Moore Bond film. And there are not that many. I mean, he only did, 7 of them in 12 years?
That's a lot.
He did Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, and A View to a Kill, which was his last role before retiring. That movie came out in 81 or something like that, I want to say. So let's start with Rodrigo. Rodrigo, do you have a favorite Roger Moore Bond film?
So with James Bond films, usually I've only seen each James Bond film once.
Right.
So they all kind of run together for me, especially the ones that all have the same actor. So I can't remember what part of which movie I remember, like what scene was in which movie. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to vote for the one that I'm voting for on account of that. Dun, 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 dun.
Yep.
So it'll be Live That'll be Live and Let Die for me. Yep.
Okay. Ashley, do you have a favorite Roger Moore Bond film?
That's a complicated question. So, Man with the Golden Gun is one of the greatest titles for a James Bond movie ever. And then when you play that game where you see if movie titles still stand up by taking the last letter off the end, Man with the Golden Goo is always really funny. But I don't like happy or funny James Bond. So like pretty much none of what Roger Moore did is really my cup of tea. Although I'm not taking away that he's talented and that he left an inextricable mark on the character. It's just not. I like my sad Daniel Craig James Bond stories. But I remember when Halle Berry was a Bond girl and everyone was like, oh, she's the first Black Bond girl. Oh, she's the first one when they have adult time to be on top. And I hate to tell you that Grace Jones did both of those before and is an icon for all time. So simply for the beauty that is Grace Jones and because I want to be her when I grow up, I am going to go with A View to a Kill.
Awesome. Matthew, what about you?
We see the thing is, when we say 7 isn't a lot, 7 is the most that anyone has done as Bond because that's how many Connery did. And really, for me, it's tough because as with Rodrigo, I have a whole lot of things that just sort of blur together in my head. I really loved whatever was going on where he was running around with Sheriff Buford T. Justice and they jumped over that corkscrew thing. And I really liked the one where he was like on the moon with that one girl with the thing. And I really kind of liked the one that had the terrible pun in the title and you couldn't go 5 seconds without somebody going, tee-hee, that also means genitals. But for me, you have to break it down and you have to say, for 2 reasons, The Spy Who Loved Me, not only the best of Moore's Bond, but the best Bond on the movie screen as far as I'm concerned. Because it's got that car, that Lotus Esprit that goes underwater and turns into a thingamum.
Yeah.
And then it also has Emma Peel as it briefly in it for like 12 seconds. No, wait, maybe that's the other one. Anyway,
so
that's a solid one.
Yeah, The Spy Who Loved Me. That's who I voted for too. The Spy Who Loved Me had Barbara Bach in it, which was awesome. Also had, of course, Jaws, as you said. That was his first appearance. Although some people would say some people would say that he's much better in Moonraker, but I loved him in this one because he was just so scary and comes out of nowhere with these big mouth of teeth. And then plus, you have Stromberg's underwater hideout that rises from the ocean like the Injustice League, the Legion of Doom headquarters
Legion of Doom,
in the swamp. Yes. Yeah. And because of that, this one is really, of the James Bond ones, my favorite. I know some people really like Octopussy, but if you're going to have James Bond dressed as a clown, I don't know. I think that kind of, I think that takes it down a bit from me. And you're right, Matthew. The I believe it's Live and Let Die is the Swamp Chase one, because that's the one that has voodoo, the whole voodoo thing going with it.
Papa Shango. It has that guy who I think is clearly meant to be Jackie Gleason in Smokey and the Bandit, which is weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that works, but yeah.
And then, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Moonraker the one with the weird brothers, or where they address each other as Mr. So-and-so and Mr. So-and-so? I think
Let's see. Moonraker is the one with Holly Goodhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one where there's these 2 weird brothers that are following Bond around as the bad guys. I think they're brothers, but they're really creepy in that. But definitely for me, it's Spy Who Loved Me. Yeah. But that's not the one that's leading, unfortunately, Matthew.
No, it's not. And, you can expect that. We are only 4 people from one continent, 3 different countries, and only one of us is an idiot, but I'm not telling you who.
Hey, be nice to yourself. You need to have a better positive attitude. You need to have a positive attitude, some better self-esteem.
That's clearly what I meant, Schleicher. Right now, the Man with the Golden Gun is leading, probably because it's fun to say the Man with the Golden Goo. 28% of the vote there. Spy Who Loved Me is in a close second. Yeah, right.
Don't forget, don't forget the Man with Golden Gun also features Third Nipple.
Right, and it's got Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, a little dose of Christopher Lee.
And Hervé Villachet.
Hervé Villachet is in that. Yeah, he's awesome, too. That right there is 50% of the vote, ladles and jelly spoons, followed by For Your Eyes Only with that killer Sheena Easton theme. Live and Let Die, which has the wonderful phrase, in this ever-changing world in which we live in, which may be the greatest abuse of the word in one single sentence in all time. So thank you, Sir Paul McCartney. Followed at the very bottom, A View to a Kill, which I thought was a Timothy Dalton. What am I thinking of?
You're thinking of the one that came after that.
Oh, right, that one.
Yeah.
However foolish of me.
I know.
There are no horrible Bond films.
Yeah, okay? The Timothy Dalton ones are horrible.
No, even the 1963 David Niven version of Casino Royale
is better than Timothy Dalton.
They are not horrible. This is the thing. I know from horrible movies. I have watched The Black Hole 10 times in the year 2017. Horrible movies are my purview, my oeuvre, my wheelhouse, my je ne sais quoi. These are the place that I live. And with the possible exception of Spectre, which I haven't seen, there has never been a truly horrible Bond movie.
There's a kitty in it.
Yeah.
There's a kitty in it? All right.
Yes.
So even Lazenby did a good one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's my favorite James Bond movie. Here's the thing, listeners. You need to head over to majorspoilers.com and cast your vote in the Major Spoilers Poll of the Week as soon as you possibly can, because not this week, but next week on Zach on Film, we are going to take a look at the one that you guys pick as your favorite Roger Moore James Bond film for that episode. Right now, it's The Man with the Golden Gun, but it could be Spy Who Loved Me. I don't know if there's enough people out there to vote for A View to a Kill, but if it happens, I guess we'll have to take a look at it. That's next week, not this week, next week on Zach on Film. So get over to majorspoilers.com and vote now.
Let me know which it is, because I may get in on that.
Well, it's going to be one of those. You can head over to majorspoilers.com every single day, Matthew, and you can just check right there on the right column, and it will tell you who is in the lead.
It'll tell you which movie, It'll tell you which movie you should be watching at the time.
Yes, exactly.
Right. It's like, oh no, we gotta switch to The Spy Who Loved Me.
We were watching
by Friday of this week, we will have made the determination. So really, the voting closes on Friday. So who is ever in the lead on Friday, that will be the movie that we will watch. It is not quite a fifth week, because next week, which is the fifth week, we will be taking a look at some Wonder Woman comics for the upcoming Wonder Woman movie. But until then, we decided that we would celebrate a fifth week event in May, because there are 5 weeks in May, with another return to the Amalgam universe with maybe the 2 worst books.
The 2 worst books. Why did you do this to me? Why do you hate me?
I said, Matthew, let's group them together. And you're, once again, Matthew's the one that picked Assassins and Bullets and Bracelets together.
That is not true. That is a lie.
Aren't we doing them in order? This is the order they came out.
This is the order that they came out.
The order that they came out, yeah.
So let's first take a look at Assassins. I wonder, Assassins, I have to wonder, this was the DC version of the book. And I'm trying to remember, wasn't the last DC Amalgam book also not very good?
I feel like the Amazon one was the only one that was kind of good.
The Amazon was the best of the last one, but I want to say that was no. Actually, isn't this a Marvel book?
No, this one is Paul. It's got Paul Levitz as the editor on it, so
which is weird.
Yeah,
because when you look at it, Dan Chichester and Scott McDaniel were at the time the creative team on Daredevil.
Well, maybe this is truly an amalgam where they were working together both sides. Of the 2 that we're looking at this week, Assassins to me is by far the worst of the 2. This is of the 2.
All the books put out ever under the Amalgam banner, with the possible exception of Generation Hex, Assassins is the worst.
This is one that features Cat's Eye and Dare, a combination of Catwoman and who? Matthew? Elektra, and then Daredevil and not Deathstroke.
Daredevil and Deathstroke the Terminator.
Okay,
and the important part to remember is it's a true amalgam. They just grabbed an X chromosome from each of them.
Part and
created Dare.
In fact, the big bad they're going up against is Wilson, not Wilson Fisk, but it's Wilson Fisk crossed with the Riddler, and we get
Edward Fisk.
The big question.
Rodrigo,
run us through this adventure, please.
Well, interesting that you phrase it as run us through this adventure, because it is just like straight up fighting, right? It's like we start at the bottom of a building and they fight their way to the top of a building. In the interim, they stab a lot of people. Some amalgamated superheroes show up as / villains, and they fight them. And then at the end, one of them, or one of the two assassins, might end up dead. The other one manages to capture the big question, and the book ends as what is going to happen next, which of course is with all Amalgam books. There's nothing's going to happen next, because this was a one shot.
Interestingly, this plot is an homage to the Bruce Lee film The Game of Death, where he had to fight his way up the pagoda, and on each level there was a new boss.
Or likewise, the first Iron Fist series, where he's got to climb up the building to go get after what's his face.
Ninja Gaiden actually has that same plot too. But
starting to see a pattern here.
The things that those stories have that this book doesn't.
It's a story.
Is
anything interesting?
A skillful writer. I will say that there
characters that I want to root for.
There are some shots in this book where McDaniel just goes nuts. And remember, 1996, to put it in perspective, was the just kind of like the bloom of the bad girl comics era. Almost all of the most successful books of 96 were books that involved large-breasted women, half naked, killing people with guns, sticks, and or swords. So this book was right in the middle of the zeitgeist, but it's bad. That when I have said this before on the show, I talk about worshiping at the altar of Frank Miller. That is what this book is. This is the Game of Death through a lens of Frank Miller by creators who are neither Bruce Lee nor Frank Miller. And even the vaguely clever bits are just not.
No, there's nothing clever in this book. It's just like, hey,
Cat's eye is a great pun.
It's maybe. But it is. It's just like, let's take half of one name, half the other name, smash them together, and that's it. And that's your concept. Run with it, boys and girls. And it's just, it doesn't work. And as I said, there's not a single one of these characters that I care about. Bullets and Bracelets, there's at least one character that I care about. But in here, it's like, I don't care if they live or die. And when they get to the top, one of them gets a bunch of yellow goo all over her face. What's that supposed to be?
I don't know. Pus?
Is that what it is? Okay. Because apparently
maybe
the big question goes in and tries to rip out her eyeballs, both of her eyes, and then you cut to another panel and it's like, okay, there's red stuff coming out and then there's yellow stuff coming out.
He ripped off her horns.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
Are they supposedly real horns then?
The horns are what allow her to see because she's blind.
Okay.
I forgot about the horns entirely until this very moment.
She's blind because she has one missing eye from Deathstroke and one blind eye from Daredevil.
But two horns, which neither one of them have.
Right.
Daredevil has horns.
Well, and his costume.
Hat.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to go out too far out in terms of the anatomy of a Scott McDaniel 96 drawing, but there are other things here that neither of them have. Holy crap, somebody needs to talk to him about. Because both.
Well, you can't fault men for what they don't have.
Well, both of these women have no spine.
Yeah, well,
I mean, some serious broke back going on in here.
And only a handful of ribs.
But like not the mountain, and that would have been more interesting.
I kind of like the big question because he kind of looks like Tobias Whale throughout the whole thing.
I like the big question, not the way he's written, but I think it's a smart amalgamation because there's like a lot more obvious stuff to do with the Riddler than put him like they mix two characters that are both criminals. They're both kind of like a sit around and wait for the hero type villains, but they're very different. So the smartest thing to come out of this, I feel, is Big Question. Actually, I've actually always liked this character, and I don't hate the design. I think that, especially with this Like we get up close, you get like all the teeth. We get far away, everyone becomes like Saturday morning cartoons kind of style. Like when they get away from him and it's just kind of like a big guy with a question mark on his face, it still works.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a good design.
What was the crossover with Cable, and who's the other character that appeared?
That was Chase Lawler, the 1994 version of Manhunter, who sucks. That DC has 10 or 11 different Manhunters, and this guy blows. Interestingly, there are 4 Cable amalgams in the greater Amalgam universe, which is interesting because there are only 3 Cable amalgams in the actual Marvel universe.
And they actually cut 3 elevator cables in this issue.
Yeah, by the way, the line where they explain that he's a Manhunter built of flesh and cable, someone needs to be taken out and beaten.
But see, it's not just that character, right? It's all the characters they do that. They do that to every single character, and it sucks. That's the thing that was the most annoying. It's like, okay, we kind of get it. You don't have to explain everything. But, I mean, even the jokes.
But they do.
But, no, just let the characters go as the characters. I mean, if this is supposed to be, in the Amalgam universe, this is supposed to be a series that has been going on, or this is the first time that these two characters are teamed up together. So supposedly, if you're an Amalgam reader and have been for decades, you know who these characters are. You don't need to explain that each time that the character appears on panel.
Yeah, Dare's dead.
Yeah, no. And then the riddles weren't even that good. They were like really bad dad jokes.
Have you guys ever seen in the endless lists of the 10 worst costumes of all time, the armored Daredevil costume with the blades and the shoulder pads?
The shoulder pads, yeah.
Yeah, this is the creative team that was writing Daredevil that made that. These are the people responsible for armored shoulder pad Daredevil.
But okay, I want to, in defense of Scott McDaniel, he drew some amazing Nightwing stuff.
Scott McDaniel's a wonderful artist. I love his work on Great 10. I like a couple of scenes in here. That first, it's like page 3, where Elektra turns back and she's doing her little whippy thing with the whip. That's a great shot. It may be a little too much bottom for me, but it's a really well-constructed picture. And don't get me wrong, the weaknesses of this book visually are there, but I really feel like they're here because they're intentionally channeling Frank Miller. Because there's a scene where you see, I think it's Jimmy Olsen on TV, and it's just panels straight out of Legends of the Dark Knight.
Right.
This is a tribute to Frank Miller through the lens of 2 super half-naked chicks.
Even hanging the big question upside down from the building is out of Dark Knight Returns. So it's not like it's like they're trying to hide it. Yeah.
No, they're not trying to hide it, but they're also not doing it effectively. They're not making it work as anything more than hey, these books existed. But you know what? Cat really, Sai is a great pun.
For me, the biggest issue here is that there's no actual opposition, right? The book just spends every page showing you how badass they are and telling you how badass they are with the text boxes. It's like, here's this guy, but he is no match for them. It's like, oh, here's this other guy, but he is also no match for them. They have won. Now they are on top, and there is a long fight, but he's no match for them, and he is done.
If it was written like that, it would have been better.
Yeah, it's right, because there's no like self-awareness about it.
Yeah.
When we get to Lobo the Duck, we'll get to see a very similar story that is actually self-aware about how bad it is. If we ever get to Lobo the Duck,
I don't think it's in this year.
Lobo the Duck is second generation Amalgam.
Second generation, we'll get there. There's a 5th week every 5 weeks, is what I've heard.
The other book to come out this week, or in the second week of the Amalgam universe, Bullets and Bracelets. This is what happens if Steve Trevor meets the Punisher and Princess Diana meets Princess Diana.
Yeah, that right there is the main weakness of this book. Because Amalgam is all about, here's some Marvel and here's some DC stuck together. We complained about Amazon just basically being, here's Storm.
Right.
only she is Wonder Woman. This is the other half of that. This is Wonder Woman who's no longer Wonder Woman, but she's also not Storm. She's just literally biker Wonder Woman with skulls on her panties.
Oh, yeah. She's not even Wonder Woman. She's just Diana Prince.
This is the costume that biker Wonder Woman wore when she was ejected by
Except
Artemis.
she's got the Punisher logo right there on her
skull
belt.
panties.
Yeah. Oh, and because this,
not her belt.
And to make this amalgam, I mean, she doesn't have Amazonian bracelets. She has Wakandian adamantium bracelets, as they explain.
Vibranium, yeah.
No, it is.
No, it's adamantium.
That's actually part of the problem. It's that it's Wakandian adamantium. And I'm like, seriously?
I literally
come on,
just
nerds.
read these before the podcast, and I don't remember a damn thing about them.
Oh.
It's interesting because something about this issue, and now I forgot because when I was reading it at the time, I was like, oh, this totally reminds me of what they're currently doing in one of the universes right now. And I can't remember which one, if it's something on TV, something in one of the each of the publishers' comic strips, or what. Oh, I know. It felt like a Jessica Drew, Luke Cage, someone has stolen our baby. We need to go and smash some faces.
Jessica Jones.
Jessica Jones, sorry.
Jessica Drew is exactly the same character with a different last name. But don't tell anybody because Bendis gets money when they use
So
Jessica
in this issue, Steve and Diana are on a rescue mission to go save their son who has been kidnapped. And along the way, we learn their histories. We learn how they met each other. And we get to find out that Jim Rhodes is really Monarch. And here I thought it was Hank Hall. Or Hank Henshaw.
Okay. His name is Trevor, by the way. Trevor Castle.
Okay.
Steve is someone else. And then we meet Big Titania.
Okay. I can go with that one.
I was okay with Big Titania. I can roll with Big Titania.
And I was also okay with Thanoside.
Yeah, Thanoside. Thanoside is great because it's just everybody going like, we were all thinking it, right?
Yeah.
We're all thinking it, right?
Right. Yep. That's exactly what I was thinking. Darknose.
Yeah.
But Thanoside is actually better.
Yeah. And so Thanos has stolen their baby. And in a strange twist of fate, the baby was sent back in time and raised to be, what's his name? Kano or whatever? Kanto. And
Kanto, the killers of Apocalypse.
So the parents have never had a chance to watch their son grow up, but they're going to send him away to the new gods where they can meet the High Father Odin and live happily ever after. This one wasn't too bad. I mean, as far as these mashups go, this was
better than Assassins.
I mean, this was straight up.
Sure.
I mean, seriously, this is straight up a 90s depowered Wonder Woman while Artemis is in control. Steve Trevor going after their child on Apocalypse.
Yeah, that is exactly what this is. And I think that while it betrays the kind of the
contract.
It's like not an amalgam title per se. It actually successfully works with a couple of exceptions, one of them being how that top stays up. But most of this book, you can read and go, okay, I understand everything that's going on here. This is kind of neat. And even the things where they give us the twist, and I'm like, boy, I saw that coming from a mile away.
I mean, they don't even try to hide anything. Like even the Furies, they just go by their straight up names.
Yeah. Well, and the Marvel version of the female Furies are actually really clear ripoffs of the female Furies. They're the grapplers. And some of them I think one of them has the same name. Shh. Thanos is a tribute.
I love the name Thanoside.
Yeah, Thanoside actually factors into several Amalgam books. He makes an appearance in other books as well.
Yep. Oh, and I also like the Secret Crisis.
Yep.
I thought that was a nice mashup.
Back during the Secret Crisis on Infinite Wars.
Yeah.
We all had all these things and stuff and junk. Granny Harkness doesn't really work for me, but that's because nobody knows who Agatha Harkness is.
Right.
She trained the Scarlet Witch.
Ooh, look at the big brain on Ashley.
I thought that was a cow.
Yeah, that was Bova.
That was
Bova the
her
cow.
nanny.
Bova raised the Scarlet Witch. Agatha trained the Scarlet Witch.
Bova has also at times been a vampire.
A vampire cow.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Not the only vampire cow in the Marvel Universe either, but
yeah.
Bessie the Hell Cow is another story for another time.
So, of these two, well, I guess we can't do a... which one... If you had to read an ongoing series, and this is not a choice, you have to read an ongoing series, which one would you rather read? Assassins or Bullets and Bracelets?
Does it have to be by this creative team?
It has to be.
I would imagine so,
This is like the next 2 years, creative team has been hired exclusively by Amalgam, and you will either have to read Assassins or Bullets and Bracelets because there are no other comics being created except for these two.
Ostrander is an amazing writer. I would rather read Bullets and Bracelets with the caveat that Gary Frank's crazy flippy eyes make me nuts. Every single facial expression of a Gary Frank character, even Superman, looks like he's just about to reach out and rip your throat out and then bathe in your blood. But aside from that, I would say definitely Bullets and Bracelets, because I feel like, A, they set up bits and pieces of this world that feel like I want to read them. As Assassins ended with that, here's a plot hook for something that's never going to happen.
Right.
Which was like, oh, ha, ha, here's a meta statement about comic book storytelling. But Bullets and Bracelets ends with full closure on this arc, and it gives you this tapestry, this greater framework of things that could happen. And, I'm kind of fine with that.
I would say I'm also good with reading more Bullets and Bracelets because I felt like this one feels more fully realized, even though it's already realized because it's just DC characters in weird costumes.
And the Punisher. Don't forget the Punisher.
Well, yeah. But for some reason, I want to say that if this had been something that was an ongoing gimmick that the companies agreed to for like 3 months or something, this is the one that would have had the more interesting storyline of the two. This is the one that would have carried people further and longer. And that's why I would have gone with this one.
It's the one that would have sucked slightly less.
Yeah, Ashley, what would you have picked?
Yeah, definitely Bullets and Bracelets, with the understanding that I don't want to read Bullets and Bracelets.
But you have to.
But if you have to read something,
there are only 2 comic books on Earth 9602.
Maybe I wouldn't read comics anymore. I just have a really hard time getting past the cheesecake 90s level of art that's going on Assassin's story problems aside.
Oh, yeah.
Usually both of those girls wear more clothes than Diana in Bullets and Bracelets, and somehow they feel more naked.
Right, it's somehow more offensive there.
Yeah. Rodrigo, what about you?
Definitely Assassins, but I'd have to read it out loud with this voice. Electric Kyle judges the firestorm with Shadow Warrior Chris and slashes back with dominatrix passion.
So Cartman is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much. And anytime any pun came out, I was like, and Dare delivers the Deathstroke.
Well, it looks like our next 5th week books coming up in August. Doctor Strange Fate, which was hinted here in this issue, and Magneto and the Magnetic Men, which will be, I'm guessing, Magneto, the X-Men, and the
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants combined with the Metal Men.
Metal Men, yeah. Yeah, so that'll be the next 5th week event. Then that'll follow up the next month with JLX and Speed Demon. Then we have Legends of the Dark Claw and Spidey Boy still coming up. And it looks like Super Soldier and X-Patrol will wrap up your year. I think Dark Claw and Spider-Boy are going to be the highlight of our Amalgam Universe reading.
I think you overestimate Dark Claw.
I remember the Magnetic or the Magnetic Man. Yeah, I actually like that issue.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see if it stands up next week. Ashley, where can people find more of you?
Oh, you find more of me all over the internet. Follow me on all social media at Ashley V. Robinson and check out the Geek History Lesson podcast, where this week we're talking all about Baywatch. And Nick Mundy's our special guest, so you're going to want to check that out. We're about to launch right into a bunch of Wonder Woman episodes starting next week.
Excellent. And Rodrigo, where can people find you and tell us what you're doing?
You can find me at Fearsome Critter on Twitter. You can find me as Magic Turtle on Tumblr, but not on any sort of Blizzard server, because that's not what I go by. Leave that poor man alone. That's not me. Yeah, I wrote a book, Tale of Tallest Rabbit. You can find it on Amazon.
All right. And Matthew, what about you?
You can find my one-man kabuki retelling of season 1 of How I Met Your Mother on the dock of a particular building somewhere in Topeka, Kansas. Follow me on the Twitter at Mighty King Cobra. Likewise on the Tumblr. I'm now posting once a month without fail there. Don't look for me on Facebook. I'm incredibly boring there because my sisters know where I am. And also, you can find me on many of the fine shows here at Major Spoilers on our podcast posting page.
That's right. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you, Matthew. It's always fun to have all of you together each week so we can chat about comics and more. And listeners, thank you for being part of the Major Spoilers experience. That wraps it up for this issue. We will be back next week because we know that you love comics and we do too. Even Amalgam and Timothy Dalton.
Stop talking about comic books or I'll kill you. I don't care if the Hulk could defeat the Man of Steel. I'm gonna rearrange your face if you continue to debate whether Logan's claws could pierce Steve Rogers' shield. I just couldn't care less if they bring back Kraven. And I don't care if Spider-Man's a clone. Stop spending all our cash on back issues of The Flash, or I swear to God you're gonna spend your 12 years alone.
This podcast is copyright 2017 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.